Ryan. Ryan was trapped in one of Jigsaw's buildings with other victims, and when he saw his chance for an early exit, he made an insane decision. He found himself sealed in Jigsaw's trap building from the 2017 movie with other people who are all trying to survive. There are warning signs everywhere because Jigsaw loves his rules and instructions. The building has multiple doors and pathways, but this particular exit has a sign that literally says "No exit" in big red letters. Now, if you're in a deadly game where following instructions is the difference between life and death, what do you think the smart move is? Maybe don't open the door that says not to open it? But Ryan decides that clearly this sign doesn't apply to him and opens it anyway. His leg gets caught in this intricate wire setup that leaves him completely helpless and immobilized. When Anna later makes her own fatal mistake and destroys their actual means of escape, Ryan is stuck there unable to move. His inability to read a basic warning sign turned what could have been a survivable situation into certain doom. But ignoring warning signs is nothing compared to what happens when curiosity meets stupidity. Gus was in the nerve gas house from Saw 2. The nerve gas house has multiple booby traps and clear warnings about which keys work on which doors. Everyone in the house knows they're in a death trap where wrong moves equal death. Xavier is trying to use a key that's obviously meant for a different door, and all the signs point to this triggering some kind of trap. Despite knowing all of this, Gus positions himself to peer through a peephole right at the moment Xavier is about to mess up. When Xavier triggers the trap, Gus takes a gun blast directly to the face because he's looking through the peephole at exactly the wrong moment. His death becomes the perfect example of how backing up someone else's poor judgment with your own curiosity creates a double fatality. Xavier screwed up, but Gus managed to turn Xavier's mistake into his own death sentence just by being in the worst possible place at the worst possible time. But speaking of obvious solutions, the main character of the first movie missed something so simple it hurts to watch. Dr. Lawrence Gordon. Gordon was chained in the bathroom from the first Saw movie, and he had the solution to his problem literally in his hands the entire time. Gordon is chained up with Adam in that infamous bathroom, and there's a cell phone just out of reach that could potentially save both of them. He's got this hacksaw that he uses to cut through different materials throughout the movie. He even tries to cut through his chain with it and uses it for other creative purposes. The saw is clearly long enough to bridge the gap between where he's chained and where the phone is sitting. Gordon shows he can think creatively with tools in other situations, so this isn't exactly rocket science. But instead of using the saw to extend his reach and grab the phone, Gordon becomes increasingly desperate. He ultimately decides the best solution is to cut off his own foot with the hacksaw. He goes through the extreme trauma of amputating his own foot, crawling out of the bathroom, bleeding everywhere, and the whole thing could have been avoided. If he had just thought to use the saw as a reaching tool first, he could have kept his foot and possibly saved Adam too. Sometimes the simplest solution is staring you right in the face, but misunderstanding instructions can be even deadlier than missing obvious solutions. Anna and Ryan have made it through most of their tests, and they're in the final challenge together. Jigsaw presents them with a shotgun and explicitly tells them it's the key to freedom. Now, if you've been paying attention to any Saw movie, you know Jigsaw's clues are usually literal. When he says something is a key, it's typically actually a key or contains one. Anna has seen how precise and literal Jigsaw's language tends to be throughout their entire ordeal, but instead of thinking literally, she interprets this as meaning she needs to kill Ryan with the gun. When Anna fires the shotgun at Ryan, the gun backfires and kills her instantly. But it gets worse because firing the weapon also destroys the actual key that was hidden inside the shell. This leaves Ryan completely trapped with no way to escape. Her death is the perfect example of how misunderstanding Jigsaw's literal approach to clues leads to mutual destruction. She killed herself and doomed Ryan because she thought metaphorically instead of literally. Sometimes escaping your trap is just the beginning of your problems. Detective Eric Matthews. Eric breaks free from the chains in the same bathroom where Gordon and Adam were trapped, which shows he's got some problem-solving skills. But here's the thing, he's got a broken foot that makes him barely able to walk. Amanda is obviously working with Jigsaw and has backup, while Eric is alone and injured. Any rational person in this situation would try to negotiate, find another way out, or at least not immediately go on the attack. But Eric's anger takes over, and he decides to physically assault Amanda, despite being at a massive disadvantage. His aggressive approach and decision to taunt Amanda backfires spectacularly. Instead of walking out of there a free man, he gets captured and held prisoner for 6 months. During this time, he's psychologically tortured before eventually being killed. Eric turned a successful escape into prolonged suffering and death because he couldn't control his temper. His inability to think strategically when emotions were running high cost him everything. But even worse than attacking the wrong person is attacking someone when it makes zero logical sense. Adam. Adam had survived almost his entire test in the bathroom, but when Jigsaw revealed himself as the corpse on the floor, panic completely took over his brain. Adam has been chained in the bathroom throughout the first movie and has actually shown decent resourcefulness and problem-solving skills. When Jigsaw stands up from playing dead, Adam is still chained and trapped. He spots a gun, and his immediate response is to grab it and try to shoot Jigsaw. But think about this logically for 1 second. Shooting Jigsaw wouldn't unlock his chains. It wouldn't open the bathroom door. It wouldn't solve any of his actual problems. Adam has also seen throughout the night that Jigsaw's games are elaborate and carefully planned, so killing the mastermind might trigger additional traps or make rescue impossible. The gun doesn't even have bullets in it, and when Adam pulls the trigger, he gets electrocuted instead. He becomes one of the few characters to survive most of his test, only to doom himself in the final moments. Adam dies alone in that bathroom because he chose violence over logic when he was literally seconds away from potential freedom. Pure panic made him throw away everything he'd survived. Individual stupidity is bad enough, but group stupidity? That's a whole different level of frustrating. The group from Saw 5. Throughout Saw 5, the group faces connected traps where the safe areas are clearly designed for multiple people. The games are specifically testing whether they can overcome their selfish tendencies because they're all there for past actions where they put themselves before others. Jigsaw's voice recordings keep emphasizing working together and shared sacrifice. The safe zones can obviously accommodate more than one person, and every challenge is designed around the concept of cooperation. But these 5 people consistently choose individual survival over the group approach that would save everyone. Their refusal to work together leads to unnecessary deaths in the earlier challenges and makes their final trials way more brutal than they needed to be. Most of them die because they couldn't grasp the simple concept that cooperation was literally the key to survival. Each test was practically gift-wrapped with cooperation clues, and they still chose to be selfish. It's like failing a test when the teacher gives you all the answers beforehand. We're getting into the really stupid territory now, where trying to be the hero actually makes everything worse. Officer Daniel Rigg. Rigg's whole thing was that he had to save everybody, but Jigsaw kept telling him that sometimes the best way to help people is to do absolutely nothing. Throughout Saw 4, Rigg goes through tests specifically designed to teach him that his compulsive need to save people often backfires and causes more harm than good. Jigsaw's recordings repeatedly warn him that he goes too far and that his intervention frequently makes situations worse. When he encounters victims like Brenda, he has clear opportunities to step back and let situations resolve themselves. But Rigg can't resist jumping in to help because his hero complex won't let him just observe and wait. His final decision to burst through a door to save Eric Matthews results in Eric's death and his own. The timer mechanism was specifically set up so that his premature entry would trigger Eric's death trap. Rigg dies because he literally couldn't stop himself from trying to be the hero, even when doing nothing would have saved everyone involved. His need to save people became the very thing that killed them. Sometimes the most heroic thing you can do is resist the urge to be a hero. But what's worse than not following your instincts? Not following explicit instructions that could save your life. Agent Peter Strom. Strom found a glass coffin with a tape that had crucial instructions, but his paranoia made him stop listening at exactly the wrong moment. In Saw 5, Strom finds himself in a room with a glass coffin and a tape recorder that starts giving him specific instructions about what to do. But when he hears Detective Hoffman approaching, his paranoia about Hoffman working with Jigsaw makes him hide and stop listening to the tape. Strom is so focused on his theory about Hoffman being connected to Jigsaw that he prioritizes confronting Hoffman over following basic safety instructions. He's convinced he's figured out the conspiracy and wants to catch Hoffman in the act. Strom forces Hoffman into the glass coffin and gets trapped in the room as the walls start closing in. The walls crush him to death while Hoffman survives safely in the coffin. The completed tape explicitly warned him against exactly what he did. If he had just listened to the full message instead of letting paranoia take over, he would have walked out alive. His death becomes the perfect example of how not following instructions in Jigsaw's world is a guaranteed death sentence. He had the answers literally being read to him and chose to ignore them. We're in the top 3 now, and this next guy basically had multiple chances to be the hero of his own story. Jeff Denlon. Jeff was given chance after chance to save people connected to his son's death, but he kept choosing revenge speeches over actually helping anyone. Throughout Saw 3, Jeff encounters people who were involved in his son's death, including the judge and the drunk driver. Each trap is designed with a time limit that would allow him to save them if he acted quickly and chose forgiveness over revenge. But Jeff is consumed with anger and wants to make long speeches about his pain and their guilt before deciding whether to help them. The traps are clearly designed to test whether he can choose forgiveness, but Jeff can't let go of his need for emotional revenge. His hesitation and angry speeches mean that by the time he decides to act, most victims are beyond saving. His need to emotionally torment people before helping them consistently results in delays that make rescue impossible. Jeff's ultimate decision to kill Jigsaw, despite finally learning about forgiveness, leads directly to his wife Lynn's death and his daughter being orphaned. His entire test becomes meaningless because he chose revenge over moving forward. Jeff had every opportunity to be the bigger person and save lives, but his anger was more important to him than actually helping people. The second dumbest decision involves someone who thought they could profit off other people's trauma and get away with it. Bobby Dagan. Bobby thought he could get rich and famous by lying about surviving a jigsaw trap, but he forgot one important detail. Jigsaw was still out there watching. Bobby built an entire career around his fabricated survival story in Saw 3D. He created fake scars to make his story believable, wrote a best-selling book, and did speaking engagements about overcoming Jigsaw's tests. He was making serious money off other people's genuine trauma. The problem is he was doing all of this while the real Jigsaw killers were still operating and presumably paying attention to who claims to be survivors. Bobby essentially put a target on his back by lying about something that would definitely get the real killer's attention. His deception draws Jigsaw's attention, resulting in an elaborate game designed to test whether Bobby can actually survive the chest hook trap he claimed to have beaten. When Bobby fails to complete the challenge, his innocent wife gets burned alive in a brazen bull device. Bobby's lie becomes the most costly deception in the entire franchise because it results in an innocent person's death. His wife paid the price for his greed and dishonesty. He turned his fake survival story into a real death sentence for the person he supposedly loved most. But the #1 spot goes to a decision so stupid that 15 years later, people still can't believe what they're watching. Addison. Addison found a syringe of antidote in a box full of razor blades, and what she did next is still considered the dumbest moment in horror movie history. In the nerve gas house from Saw 2, Addison discovers a syringe of antidote inside a box filled with razor blades. She reaches in carefully and gets her hand caught in the blades, which is already dangerous. She accidentally spills the antidote syringe in the process, making the situation worse. At this point, she has one hand trapped in the razor blades, but one hand still completely free. There are other people around who could potentially help her figure out how to safely extract her trapped hand, or at least try different approaches. Instead of using her free hand to carefully work on freeing the trapped one, or calling for help, or literally doing anything logical, Addison puts her second hand into the exact same trap that just caught her first hand. This completely immobilizes her and makes any rescue impossible. She can't move to safety when the nerve gas starts affecting everyone. She dies because she voluntarily trapped both hands in the same device that had already caught one. Her death is considered the most agonizingly avoidable in the entire franchise, and the gold standard for panic, completely overriding basic logic. Addison literally doubled down on her own mistake. If you want to see more deaths that were deserved, click the video on screen now.